So hi, my name is Bartosz Sobolewski, and I'm illustrator and 2.5D motion designer at 11-bit Studio. Already I'm working at Frostpunk project. The title of my speech will be Empathy through Art, the visual language of Frostpunk. During my presentation, I would like to tell you about illustration in Frostpunk, illustration about people, about society, and how we create that society. Their emotion and mood, why we choose our channels of communication to create believable society, and how we connect illustration with story, text, and UI. But first, something about Frostpunk. Frostpunk is a survival society city builder. In our previous game, This War of Mine, we want to try the subject war, but not from the soldier view, but from the civilian view. That was very emotional and pushed player to tough decision, but in Frostpunk, we focus on society. It's a story not about individuals, but a whole society. So yeah, imagine the world in 19th century England when winter comes over the globe, it's freezing, the group of people find the generator, producing the heat, and the last hope for them, and from now you are the leader, the ruler, because people believe you and your city must survive. It's not easy, they are freezing, they need heat from generator, they gather coals, they need houses, food, and with every problem that comes to you. So being a captain, you have to rule the last city on Earth in an entirely frozen world. To using steam-powered technology in city, but for us, city doesn't mean only the buildings. It's a game about people living in the city. So in my speech, I want to focus on that society, how we show their needs and how they look like. In game, you can click on the people which walking around the buildings, and the game shows you their portrait, the basic information about them, where he works, where he lives, something about family, but it's a single person, and it's not enough to describe a whole society. So what we really wanted to show in our game, it's society from inside. How do we get it? We focus on these main points because how they look like. This is the people from Victorian epoch with specific style of steampunk technology and covert thick clothes. Emotion. This is the last city on Earth, and they want to survive. So what kind of emotion they have? What kind of emotion we should to show? Situation, and we put it society in different situation and how they react and how they behave. Interaction, they can disagree with your decision, but also they can disagree with each other. So also how they live. Simple look inside their homes, showing their living conditions. So we started from morality decision, and main issue was text and choices. When we want to talk about people, it's the best way to show their everyday problems, and being a ruler, you can decide on them. Then we discovered that simple text is not enough. We need to describe situation also in illustration. So that's why illustration is strictly connect with text. In our game, people can also disagree with you, with your decision, and in the end, they can throw you away from the city. So it means that you have to listen to their needs. During producing the game, we thought a lot of how to show this anger. Our solution was to show this society on illustration. It was better to present this fear and anger closer. And it allows you to have time to choose what you want to do with this. My work on 11-bit Studio was to interpret text and show society on illustration. Main issue was to connect UI and story together with illustration. So our work, we started from thinking about how the people should look like. Of course, we're looking for reference from photos from 19th century people, but we wanted to create something unique. So we decided to connect this 19th century people with some steam technology, like this light, and winter clothes, showing their poverty, tiredness, and struggle with extremely cold. Our concept artist was create first look of our society. It was very important step because we wanted to treat and show whole society as a unity, not as a unit, like individuals. The next step was to present these people from concept. First idea was to create 3D animation, full 3D models with full animation. This was photo when we're using the neuron. The program then capture your move and convert it in 3D human body. It looks more reliable, more like human, presenting emotion by gesture and move on low poly mesh. And this is our animated 3D prototypes. It looked good, but however, it was too time consuming in production. In our production, it's changing very often, so illustration must be adjusted to the production, and it wasn't happened in this way. So we started thinking how we can present human in different way, and we decided to choose a different solution. The solution based on using high poly mesh and render it to create illustration. In this way, we could faster create a new person showing their mimics and pose and show their emotion by this. So we started from first few basic people, and it was started to grow. And at the end, we had enough people to create the whole society. In this way, we have a lot of possibility to show people emotion and mood more faster than it was in 3D animation prototype. So in the end, to the better visual view, we add several effects, like snow and particle of snow and smoke, and also using the parallaxes to the illustration, and add some blinking lights react of group of people. It was only for the alive, the still illustration. So in game we have two different messages. Calling them CTA means call to action, the small one and the full screen ones. So I will start explain how it works with small ones. This kind of illustration is strictly connected with text. Main purpose of this is to be quick, understandable, be simple and clear, strictly connected with the title because it's first what you see. There are also several types of small messages. One of them is about people coming to you with some problems or needs. You can read their emotion on their faces. They should look tired and a little bit sad. It's more believable when medic comes to you with some sickness problem, or engineer comes to you with some technical ideas. Or regular simple man just inform you that people are hungry. These are simple messages saying about what happens in the city. But another type of messages we wanted, what is when we need to highlight particular situation, important for us, that when we try tell story on people's faces, but still in simple way. When somebody was drunk and somebody was beaten, we wanted to highlight this important for us information. Still in simple way, but here the details was for us important. Simple messages just for highlight the situation. Yeah, but we have a lot of situations like death or when somebody got frostbite. Illustration here allows you to be more specific. And still, it must fit to the headline text, but you need to be unity with it. When, for example, traitor is dead, illustration shows you how it's dead by suicide, and text tells you more. Why? When somebody got frostbite, illustration shows you where, but also gives you interaction. Some kind of interaction creates some kind of emotion. But on illustration, we try to treat people like individuals. Try to not treat people like individuals, but more like society. So if you see some people people on our illustration is only example. We don't call him by name. So when somebody dies, you don't care about who, but more that community already shrinks. It's simple way. Looking at the covered body, you shouldn't see exactly who died, but because more important is that fact about death. Also, there is another way to tell a story about people, just by showing some items. Just like empty crushed box, can you give you a message about thieves around? You don't need to know who and how. You just need the information about this situation. Another way of presenting the society mood is showing interaction between them. For example, when somebody afraid of amputation, by creating, posing interaction between patient and medic, we can show this fear. And you can feel when he begs of mercy. Being the ruler, you can decide if the medic should amputate his leg, but honestly, if you empathize with the patient to save his leg, the next message can be about his death. So you realize that amputation was necessary. So yeah, this is the tough decision based on fear, mercy, and knowledge. So in Frostpunk, we don't have wrong decisions. There is only your morality and emotions. So we can forget that different messages can be some kind of connected. For example, when child dies and man carries his body, it arouses emotions. But in other situation, when child is rescued, we illustrated it also arouses emotion, but you associate to these two situations, however, you recognize and feel them in a different way. Some small messages create a story. All these illustrations are connected in some way. Player can quickly recognize that particular message as a part of whole story. Another way of presenting a situation is to connect it to specific places like streets, cemetery, or prison. In this way, we link society to the city. Telling the truth sometimes is very difficult to illustrate specific situation. For example, in some of our scenario, men start to drag women from houses to hurt them. So this is the role for illustrator, to show it in such a way to use the player imagination. What will be happened with this woman? I think this is the most difficult balance between what to show and what it should be imagined. The similar situation is with children starting behaving like adults, where they are still children, but their behavior is like adults' behavior. It's a simple children game, but when you see it, this looks like bully or how to present cannibalism. Of course, you can show it in something like human being eating another human being, but it's so obvious, it's so cartoonish, and better is to ask what they feel and what forced them to do this. Thanks for our illustration, it doesn't look so brutal and give different kind of emotions. So, as I said previous, there are also two types of messages in Frostpunk. So far, I presented small messages, and now I'd like to tell you about more other types of messages, full screen ones. The main difference between small and full screen is that small tells you a story about a single person, or this kind of messages you can ignore, but full screen is about whole society, when player must get familiar with and for sure can't ignore. Basic full screen CTA shows the anger of society in 3 steps. So it's like levels. First level is like calmness, when they come to you with a problem, but the next one, the next level is anger, is when they protest and they demand changes. And third level is when they riot. And this is the last time when they come to you. First CTA, what you can see in game is intro. Main purpose of this is to introduce the feel of scenario. It gives you the idea what can happen or be. In case of fails, you will see it is also on CTA. It shows you a failure, for example, when everybody dies, or people just throw you out of the city. It's just highlighting the end of your game. So this illustration shows you a fail in a simple way. When somebody dies, we illustrate last man dying, and after his death, the light also passes away forever. During the game, regular CTA is not enough to make important decision, and you need some special full screen CTA, which can also change everything in your game. Like here, we have choose the path of your city, like order or fate. So from illustration point of view, it's very important to present the situation in such a visual way to inform the player about seriousness of his decision. And my favorite one is special CTA, where we build special moments of narration. In specific moment, we try to include something different, something emotional, which become visible points in the game. Like here, reunion, family coming back. These are one of happy moments in the game, and it builds empathy with society. So, CTA messages appear during the game. Illustrations are connected with text. Something different is with Book of Law. This is the place where you can click and choose and sign new law in your city. So I will present you some law, but first I want to tell you something about this connection between UI and illustration and how we get this visual view of Book of Laws. Here we have first prototype with, it's some kind of connect with CTA. We wanted to create some line of story of your law. So this line, because the law affects to the others, creates some history of law. So we started from research from Victorian newspaper, and it was fit to our main UI. And the other hand, it looks so unique for Book of Law. Yeah, so this is the first look of how it looks like on the beginning. The first idea was on the circle, like like in the city, we are building the city on the circle. But it wasn't so great because it doesn't fit to our idea of history of law. So we create something like tree of law. And when you sign the law, tree grows for the next node, and it should be clear for the player. Main challenge was to connect everything together, tree, illustration, and description of the law. So then it looks like this. It was our first playable prototype. And at the beginning, we had 4 different trees with different topics. For example, one of them was about child, where you can decide about education, or you can send children to work. But in the end, we connect each tree in one, create some kind of circle, coming back to the idea from the beginning. And in the end, it looks like something like that. In this law, you send children to work to save jobs. In 19th century, it was obvious that children working. But in Frostpunk, you can decide about it. One side, you need to take care about your children, but about their education. But the other side, you need hands to work to survive. So in Book of Law, you can also decide how your city will be organized and how it will look like. By illustration of Book of Law, we wanted to show how our city looks like closer in more details. To visualize it, we researched how 19th century people lived. For example, working kids. Photos from this epoch was great inspiration for us. Shows us many details and allows us to create some emotions on illustration. But the other side, we also looking for photos from every life situations for people from 19th century, how they rested and spent free time. To calm people down, you can sign in Book of Law a law to build a public house also. And that's the result of our research and work. So on illustration of Book of Law, we want to show situation of our city, to visualize the law which you want to sign. By this miserable situation, we want to highlight the need of survival as the main theme of our game. And it also shows direction, how it could be evaluated. In Book of Law, we regularly show society by people, but not always, just like in CTA. Also in Book of Law, we create society using items, just like school in the mood. This is the law where you can use dead bodies to fertilizer to plants. Here we struggle with showing by people on this illustration, and it was so not understandable, so we decided to go to simpler way to show the rest of the body. And something what you can see during the game, some plants. So this illustration has some story, you know. This is the result. We decided to show it in a simple way, and as you can see, its work is clear. Maybe a little dramatic, but still simple and understandable. But it's not enough. It's not the end about the Book of Law, because in some part of the main game, you have to choose your path. What I mentioned on previous CTA, order or fate. So from that moment, you have another tree where you can sign law to turn the city path of choosing direction. One of these paths is fate. You begin with place where people can pray, simple way to calm people down. Next law, you can sign about evening prayer, so start to arrange evening meetings with the priest. But when you go deeper and deeper, it slowly turns into something different. You hire some fate guards to make order in the city. And then, by using the guards, you turn people's mind on your way, especially it works with troublemakers. And in the end, they idolize you as their protector of truth and blindly follow you. So this escalation on illustration is very important. You need to balance illustration from the beginning, from being nice and becoming frustrating at the end, something that concerns you, that maybe you shouldn't agree with it, and you don't know if you should sign that kind of law. But it's very slowly process to show the player how far he has to move to save his city. However, at the end, player can recognize that it wasn't necessary. But what happened when we signed the last law? So, to finalize my presentation, I would like to show you some video from gameplay. The moment of signing the last law of Fate 3. In this video, we will see some spoilers maybe, but also how everything cooperates, UI, tree, illustration with gameplay and messages. So, let's start.
Listen, everyone. New law is signed.
So, yeah, I just need to, okay. So, some conclusion. So, everything must be connected and have one purpose. And good illustration doesn't make games better. But if UI, story, particles, and 3D mesh, illustration, and everything else have one main purpose, you can read it as one, the game is valuable and reach his goals. So, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Bartosz. We will again take questions from here. I have one to start with, and it's that you started out with showing the pictures of the individual people, the citizens of this town. But now also in the video and in some of the later pictures, it was a lot about what also the town looked like, and especially what kind of new things are being installed, like an execution platform, as it were. So I think that is really interesting. I mean, to me, the city was a really interesting part as sort of basically like an avatar of you as a governor or something like that. Is that in a way you think about it as well? Does the city have a life in itself? Is that also somehow a person?
You mean the connection between the city and society? Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, this is the. I was talking about the society, but the other part, this is also the city builder, and you build their buildings, but for city builder side, we wanted to focus that this is the story about people living there, and the connection between buildings and people. We show it we try to show it on the illustration, because as you see on this video, whole gameplay is from the upper view, and illustration should shows you closer the society from side of home, and yeah.
Do you have questions? Would you like to? I can also run up to you.
My question is, if it's important to you to represent a whole society and get a feeling for not only the individual, is there like a reason for there not being any non-white people in the village or the city?
I didn't listen here at the last part.
Is there a reason why there are only white people living in the city? Or I couldn't see any.
Why only white people?
Yeah.
It's a hard question, because we was thinking about why we have only white people. We don't treat them individuals, of course, and we don't care about how they look like. They should look like miserable, and we don't care about if they are white or another color. But when we put another colored side people on this game, and the randomized text was so weird, that we wasn't expect that some kind of controversial topics, because of there are some kind of different people. White people is just for example. It's only, we don't care. We wanted to also put in some scenario, but we wanted to make it in proper way, not just for randomize, just because it's another color as a people, Just, yeah. I don't know if I explained enough.
No, that makes sense. Thank you.
More questions? Yes.
You mentioned that you felt that it might be cartoony to, say, show in events the actual act taking place, rather than, say, for example, in cannibalism, you don't actually show people eating other people.
I don't hear.
Oh, sorry. When in the events you talked about that it might be cartoony to show the actual events taking place, like say with cannibalism.
Yeah. You're asking about this cartoonish stuff about cannibalism, and what is the question?
Yeah. So, do you think it also not showing the actual act? Do you think that takes away some of the emotion that the player would feel less if they don't actually see it happening?
Yeah. What I said, it was like, in brutal way, it's so obvious, It's to show something in an obvious way. It's not fit everywhere, It's when we look for cannibalism in different way of thinking, you recognize that they also have they not are another human. They also need something to eat, and they push them for do this, It's not so, and illustration can show also this. It's not so obvious way, just another way, and you just thinking why they are sad about this, and they tells you some kind of different story. So this is not so cartoonish way. This is some kind of art way thinking. Yeah, I don't know. It's.
So, do we have some more questions? Yes.
And hello. So I've noticed that the value in your drawings, in the illustrations you've shown us, were really dark, but also you have really strong highlights everywhere, basically. So why you made that decision? What do you want to tell us with this high level of contrast?
You mean the lights on the person? Why we illustrate it with this lighting? Or
yes, because the contrast.
Yeah, because
really
very important to us. It's a part to add to people this steampunk feeling, and we get it from this mechanism of light, and showing them with reacting light. It was very important to. The connection with the steampunk style, you know, it's only we don't use the tropes like regular steampunk use. We use something kind of different steampunk with Frostpunk, you know. So that's why the light on the people was most important to show this mechanism.
Okay. I have one more question actually to ask, and if we have more hands, then just show me. You were showing also, for example, children suffering in some sense in the pictures, and I wanted to ask you, is there something where you're saying that this is something we wouldn't do, this is something that goes too far for us to show even sort of in the depth of human misery?
Yeah, I illustrate a lot of things there. It was kind of, I don't know, 2,000 illustration during 2 years of working there, and there was a lot of situation when I must illustrate death and suicides and everything. But the main part of that we wanted to cross some line to illustrate some brutal stuff, that because it still was so obvious. I didn't have some kind of thinking that I shouldn't show something, because whole our company don't want to show in this way. We want to show not so brutal, but the player can think that it could be brutal, but we don't show it. Yeah.
So. I think it's really interesting with how you made this entire concept of Frost. I'm sorry.
Speaking? I don't know.
The entire idea with Frost and like Frostpunk is really cool, and I liked how you designed all of it. But I want to ask how the idea of the lights at the heart came up, because that design decision is really cool. And it implies so much, like light is life, or light is also warmth, and so many things with that. And I wanted you to, can you like talk about how you came to that design decision and how that was involved in your continued design of the world?
What is the question, shortly?
Because the characters had like heart, they had the light on they were carried on their chest at their hearts.
Yeah.
Both for warmth, I'm guessing, and for light, and it basically becomes a design metaphor. And can you like talk more about how you designed that and how that came to be?
Of course. So we are asking about this lighting stuff on persons. So just as I said, it's to highlight the steampunk. You know, we don't use in steampunk stuff like regular showing steampunk. We shows by this technology about light. Why light? We was thinking that. I don't know. Some part of this game we just added the light, and it was great that you by basic on gameplay you see people with some kind of light, and this is for the visual stuff. But if it have something more like why they need them, maybe because they also it's producing heat some or something. But why light? I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know.
Hi. My question is more sort of about the way morality functions in the game. because when you're a game designer, you decide the win conditions and lose conditions. I'm just curious about the ultimate feeling of the game. Is it possible to always be empathetic or empathic in the game and still succeed and win, or is it always a give and take to survive, and that you must always...
Yeah, you're asking about to empathize all the time and you win and then you win the game. Yeah, we try to push player to the limits. You know, it's all the time you struggle with something. Sometimes you don't have calls. Sometimes you don't have meets, and then the messages comes to you and shows you the problems of people, and everything comes around. It's hard to make good decision because you want to survive. You know, of course you can empathize all the time, but this is the time when you must to choose, and the choose is not so obvious which direction it's better or worse. Only main point is that you must survive, and how you get it, it's your decision. You know, the games don't give you the idea it's the best way or worst way, or this is the evil or good one. No, you decide if you are the good person or not after playing this game.
Right, and then sometimes the game sort of shows you the consequences of what you did, and that wasn't maybe necessary, as you showed in the video.
The consequences here it was really tough because you across some line, you know, you decide to do something, and games gives you the information if you should do this with protest. And then you kill a lot of people after that, you know, and you recognize that maybe it wasn't necessary. You recognize that. The game doesn't show you that it wasn't.
Yeah. So the game sort of helps you and strings you along, and then at some point it's like, oh, I did that.
Yeah. It's your decision also.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for a great talk. It's really fun to see some insight on such a recent game. I really enjoyed that. I have a bit of a follow-up question to something that was asked previously about not telling all the details of events that happen. And I wanted to wonder if, is it so that not telling all the details about the events actually heightens the reaction from a player as the mind fills in the blanks of what actually happened?
So you ask me for...
okay, so to reformulate, is it more powerful to not show everything than to show everything?
It's depend. It's not so obvious. It's not work all the time, but when I working on illustration and I have a text, I just thinking about how I have first idea, but first idea it wasn't so great. Then I think, how can I show it in another way? Show maybe more things by not showing a lot of details. It's not working all the time because sometimes it's very simple to show like people coming to you with problems. It's really easy. But when when it's special moments with troublemakers or something with suicide and it's a lot of things, you must think how you can create a story on illustration also, but not showing everything because player can have the field to imagine what can be happened and why and where and everything. And so, yeah, could be deeper, but not always.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, then, already 3 questions right away, so.
Hello, I guess the game is a strategic game, isn't it?
Yeah.
So strategic games are about making choices. And I'm kind of curious about this kind of choices you are providing us. Are they more about rational choices or moral choices? Because, for instance, I'm a Civilization player, and Civilization is a very rational game. The choices I make follows the max efficiency law. It's like there are slavery, there are police state. I would use them so long as they are the most efficient way. But I feel in this game, it's kind of a mix of rational choices because you have to survive and moral choices. And I'm wondering, how can you balance this?
We balance it because we tell a story. So we have something like it's not like an endless mode that you can build your city all the time. The story its end, you know, in exactly point, and we can balance it when in direction point we can put this decision to make player tougher game, and yeah, rational and morality. We should rather put morality decision than rational one. But this is a question for designers mostly. I don't know everything about how, when, and what more they put rational and moral decision. So I think in most moral ones, but it's not a question for me, but for designers who design exactly point of story.
Hello.
Hello.
Great talk. I was kind of in the same area of questioning, that in this game the player has to make really hard choices, and that the images they see while they make that choices might heavily impact what choice they are going to make. So my question is, how do you balance so that both choices feel like options the player want to take while having this image in front of them? How is the image changed maybe to guide the player, or do you even guide the player to make a certain choice?
Yeah, this is a good question, because you ask me how illustration can shows you the way of what you want to choose. Yeah, so this is the struggle of illustrator like me, that illustration can't turns your mind on direction point. It shows you both way of thinking, you know, that some kind of when people comes to you with fighting each other, and you can't highlight once because it was more obvious that you picked this side. Illustration could only shows you some subject things, you know, that illustration can decide for you. That I don't know if it's enough. Good question. Okay.
Hi. Can you talk a little bit more about your decision to use religion as a way to convey or not convey empathy?
I think I understand everything. Can you see?
Sure. So you made a lot of use of religion in the game, and a lot of the part of your talk is a lot about empathy. And so, how did you use religion as a way to convey or not convey empathy?
You know, you talk about religion, but this is the only one path. The other path is also order, and that's why it's religion. It's only the way to calm down the people. It's only the example. It's not that like religion is our calming down the people and extract something with like the tree involved so far something different. That's the same with order stuff. You start arranging guards, and then they become some like laws about judgment and turning like I don't know. You must play. I don't know if it's about this question. It's about I will explain everything or. I don't think it answers it, but I don't. But that's okay. It's okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, Bartosz.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the questions. I think there might be even some more, and maybe we can sort of grab you right after this talk here and get into a conversation. But yeah, so this is our program here in this room for today. We will continue tomorrow, and of course, there's the possibility to play the games on the show floor. So one more time, thank you very much.